He didn't even look up when she said it, just kept swirling his wine in that oversized glass, pretending not to care that the vineyard it came from was dying. "You," he said finally, with a crooked smile. "You're a waitress, not a miracle worker," and maybe she wasn't. But 6 weeks later, that same man, an oil tycoon worth $500 million, stood barefoot in his field, staring at rows of blooming vines that shouldn't have survived another week, whispering the words, "I don't understand. What did you do?" She looked at him gently, and just said, "I listened to it. Something you stopped doing a long time ago." The first time Ava saw the vineyard, it looked like grief, the kind of grief that doesn't cry or scream, just withers quietly until nothing is left. She wasn't supposed to be there. She was just the waitress from town, another name stitched in cursive on a faded apron, slinging coffee and polite smiles in a roadside diner no one remembered unless they were lost. But that day, he'd come in with a driver, a Rolex, and a bottle of wine he didn't drink. The oil tycoon, Nathaniel Creed, retired young, arrogant, even younger, bought the vineyard like a trophy, like a man who thought money could teach vines to obey. But the land didn't care who he was, and the vines, they were dying, slowly, proudly, like they were teaching him a lesson. Ava had never spoken to him before. He sat in the corner, always alone, always staring out the window like he was daring the land to grow again. And one day, she said something she hadn't meant to. It just came out. "Your soil's angry," she said, as she refilled his coffee. "It feels choked." He blinked like she'd slapped him, then laughed out loud. "Long cruel, is that right?" he said, voice like stone in cold water. "And I suppose you think you can fix it." Ava didn't answer right away, because what do you say to a man who thinks the world belongs to him? She looked out the window, watched the clouds move above the dry hills, and then she said softly, "I think it's not too late, but it's asking you to let go." He stood, tossed 100 on the table. "You want to fix it?" he said. "Be my guest." And just like that, she was standing at the edge of a dying empire. The first day she stepped onto the land, it didn't welcome her. It groaned. Wind scraped through brittle vines. The soil cracked beneath her shoes. Everything about it said leave. But Ava didn't. She knelt, touched the dirt, whispered to it like an old friend, because what Nathaniel never knew was that Ava didn't grow up in restaurants. She grew up in soil, in forgotten fields behind her grandmother's trailer, with her hands deep in the earth and a heart that learned to listen before it learned to speak. She didn't need machines. She didn't need labs. She needed time, silence, and a little faith. And every morning after her shift, she came back, bringing compost instead of chemicals, whispering instead of warning. She covered the roots with mulch, not money, sang to the vines pruned to dead but never blamed them. And Nathaniel, he watched from the veranda, glass in hand, betting against her every hour. But slowly, the color changed, the leaves stopped falling, and Ava kept going. It was on the 22nd day that Nathaniel finally came down the hill. No wine, no swagger, just a question. "What are you doing?" Ava didn't turn. She was kneeling, hands buried in a basin of soaked ash and compost tea. "Listening," she said. "It's been screaming for years. You just drowned it in oil." Nathaniel frowned. "I irrigated, I hired consultants. I spent, that's the problem," she said, standing. "You spent. You didn't give." There was silence. The kind that feels heavy, like the moment right before a storm breaks. He looked at her hands, dirty, cut, bleeding in places, and for the first time, he didn't laugh. The next day, he was waiting for her. Not at the veranda, not at the diner, but down in the vineyard, by the old irrigation lines where the weeds used to overrun everything. He didn't say anything, just held out a pair of gloves. Brand new. Ava stared at him for a second, trying to decide whether it was a joke or something real. He shifted awkwardly, cleared his throat. "They said it was dead," he murmured. "Everyone I paid. They all said to rip it out." She took the gloves. "You don't rip out something just because it's quiet," she said. That hit him harder than he expected, because deep down, that was him too. That day he worked beside her, and for the first time the tycoon was just a man, knees in the dirt, sweat dripping into the earth. Silent, except when Ava corrected him. He wasn't used to being corrected. Not by anyone. Especially, not a waitress, but Hiramung, the vine. She was the one who knew the rules. And strangely, he didn't mind. There was a rhythm to the work, a peace to it. Even the birds sounded different down here. As the days passed, the neighbors began to whisper. Why was Nathaniel Creed working in the fields? Why was that girl, the one from the diner, always on his land? People always assume it's about money, or scandal, or power, but they never consider the simpler truth, that maybe one broken thing had just found another, and maybe they were fixing each other. It was the 34th morning when Ava noticed it. A scent, faint, sweet, impossible. She looked up and froze. The old Merlot vines, the ones even she thought were beyond saving, had bloomed. Tiny blossoms clung to the stems like a secret whispered by the earth itself. She touched one gently. It trembled. Nathaniel saw her from the hill, and when he came down, he stopped beside her without saying a word. His hands were shaken. Did this? He whispered. No, Ava said softly. It wanted to live. I just listened. He sank to his knees. Like a man in a church, the vines surrounded him like witnesses, and he wept, not because he was weak, but because for the first time in a very long time, something finally answered back. Later that night, they sat on the porch, with tea instead of wine. He asked her where she learned all this, and she told him about her grandmother, the woman who raised her, the woman who could tell the health of a tree just by touching its bark. She taught me that plants are like people, Ava said. If they're sick, you don't yell at them. You care, you wait, you love them through it. Nathaniel looked down at his hands. Oil tycoon. Hands. Rough, empty, calloused by the wrong things. I forgot how to love things slowly, he said. She looked at him, and for once, saw the man, not the empire. The vineyard kept blooming. Week 6 came, and it wasn't just the vines anymore. It was the bees returning, the birds, the earthworms in the soil. Life wasn't just surviving, it was singing. Buyers came. Old wine brokers, who'd long written off the property, suddenly wanted meetings. But Nathaniel didn't care because this wasn't about profit anymore. It was about something much harder to win back. Redemption. One evening, as the sun dropped below the hill, he turned to her. I need to know something, he said quietly. Why do you really help me? Why this place? Ava didn't answer right away, just looked at the vines. Then finally, she told him, when I was 10, my mom drove drunk. We hit a post, rolled into a field. Nathaniel froze. She went on. I blacked out. When I woke up, the car was upside down. My mom didn't make it. I crawled out. I remember lying on the dirt. I thought I was dying. She paused, voice trembling. But then I smelled it. Grapes, old ones, dry but still holding on. That field, it was a vineyard. I don't remember anything else from that day, just the smell. It was the last thing. Before help came, she looked him in the eye. So when I saw this place dying, it felt like losing her all over again. I guess I couldn't let that happen. Nathaniel didn't speak, didn't blink. He just reached over, took her hand, and held it in silence. Because sometimes, the deepest wounds don't ask for answers, just presence. They came slowly at first. A few locals, curious, skeptical, old men, with weathered boots, arms folded across skeptical chests. Former workers, retired vintners, women with soil still under their nails from dreams they once buried. They walked the rows in silence, brushing leaves between their fingers, blinking like they were seeing ghosts. This isn't possible, one whispered, but it was. In 6 weeks, the vineyard didn't just come back, it came back stronger. The soil had texture again. The stems weren't brittle, they were bold. The grapes were still green, but the clusters, they held promise, the kind of promise you don't buy with money. You earn it. With pain, with patience, with someone who believes when no one else does. Nathaniel didn't make a speech. He just stood at the center of it all. A man once defined by oil fields and steel towers, now quiet beneath the sun, with dirt still under his fingernails. And beside him, Ava. No title, no inheritance, no college degree, just the girl from the diner who had somehow rewritten the ending. When a reporter asked him how he did it, he only smiled. I didn't, he said. She did. The vines just remembered how to listen to her. And in that moment, something shifted in the town, because they weren't looking at a waitress anymore. They were looking at a woman who'd brought life back to the land they thought was dead. And somehow, to all of them, too. Weeks passed. Ava was offered interviews, book deals, even a position at the state university's agriculture program. But she turned them all down. She wasn't interested in being famous, she just wanted the land to keep breathing. And Nathaniel, he made one final announcement. At a town hall. No press, no show. Just a simple statement. I'm signing the vineyard over to her. Gasps filled the room. One man stood. You mean as manager? Nathaniel shook his head. As owner? He turned to her and said, it never belonged to me. I just bought it. She brought it back. Ava didn't speak. She couldn't, because in that moment, everything inside, Hertha, grief, the guilt, the ghost of a 10-year-old girl lying in a broken car melted into something else. Hope. That night, as she walked the vineyard alone. It was warm, quiet, alive. She paused by the very vines that bloomed first and knelt beside them, not to tend, not to fix, just to say thank you. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for forgiving. Thank you for remembering her. And somewhere in the breeze, she swore she heard her grandmother's voice. You don't fix land like this with money. You fix it by listening to its heartbreak. Nathaniel never left town. After that. He sold his city house, let go of 3 board seats, and started building benches across the vineyard. For guests, for workers. For Ava. She didn't ask him to. He just said it felt good to build something that didn't need oil to stay alive. The vineyard's new label. It bore no family crest, no legacy brand, just one word. Listened, bottled in silence, aged in grace, and on the back of every bottle was a quote. The land doesn't need to be conquered, just heard. So the next time someone tells you you're just a waitress, or just anything. Remember Ava. And remember that even the most broken things can bloom again. if someone finally listens, because sometimes the miracle isn't what you grow, it's who you become while you're growing it.